On there? Okay. All right. It's 8:30. We're gonna get going here. I call this Sawyer County Zoning Committee meeting to order. Before we get started, if anybody wants to speak on one of these CUPs, we have a slip up there we need you to fill out and turn it in up here. If you're an owner or an applicant, you don't need to fill that out. All right, roll call.
Ron,
Present.
Bruce,
Here.
Dawn Pettit,
Here.
Jesse Betcher,
Here.
Tweed Schuman,
Here.
Stacy Hessel. Here. Thank you.
Okay. I gotta get this in order. Get this different here. Okay. All right. Statement of committee hearing and procedure and statement hearing notice. The full statement of the committee and hearing procedure document, including directions for individuals wishing to speak at the public hearing to be conducted at this zoning committee meeting, are available in front of the room next to the agenda for today's meeting. The statement of the committee and hearing procedure document is hereby incorporated into the record for this committee meeting. Any public hearing conducted at today's committee meeting has been published as a Class 2 notice in accordance with Chapter 985 of the Wisconsin statutes and the Sawyer County Record and the Sawyer County Gazette, and posted. Okay. We'll do the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I need a motion to have the May 21st, 2021 minutes approved.
I'll
Mr.
make that
Chairman, I'll
motion.
make a motion to approve the May zoning committee minutes.
I'll second.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Paulson and a second by Ms. Pettit to approve the May 21st, 2021 minutes. So all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Public comment. Please note, comment time is intended for the general public comments, not comments relating to specific applications before this committee. Each agenda item requiring public hearing will have a public hearing conducted just prior to the application being considered by this committee. If you wish to speak on a specific agenda item, we encourage you to hold your comments until that specific public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I have one slip for public comment for Linda Zilmer.
Okay, Zilmer, state your name and your address, please.
Linda Zilmer, 902 Holly Hill Lane, Bridgewood, Wisconsin, Edgewater, property owner, 1626N, County Highway F. My comment tonight is related to last night's county board approval of the zoning amendment regarding campgrounds. And maybe at the end of the meeting, under new business, there might be clarification as to how that would be implemented. I had previously sent something to the zoning administrator looking for an answer, so I know there's been time to look it up. So my understanding of the zoning ordinance regarding campgrounds is there's been probably at least 3 different versions over time. Some of the older non-conforming campgrounds are only supposed to have a small platform for entrance and leaving the camper. Other campgrounds have or should have had followed the zoning ordinance with the 6 foot out from the side of the camper. Now with the change in density requirement, my understanding of what the amendment is supposed to accomplish, besides balancing interests between the campgrounds and the neighbors, but it's also supposed to be carrying capacity for groundwater, pout systems, stormwater runoff. So with the new ordinance, you have larger acre size, you have smaller density or number of campsites per acre. So therefore, it allows for things like the sheds or 240 square feet decks. My interpretation of what the different versions of the zoning ordinance would be is that existing campgrounds, as of, before county board action last night, they are grandfathered in, maybe that's not the right term, but they are, if they don't meet any of the new requirements, they are non-conforming, and that they would not be allowed 240 square feet decks or sheds unless they met the acreage and density requirements. So as far as zoning to go forward and enforce this, I know there was an existing campground that was advocating for the larger deck sizes, but if they don't meet the other requirements of the new zoning ordinance, I don't think they would be entitled to the 240 square feet deck. And they should be complying with the 6 foot out. So I know you can't answer during public comment, but if that could be addressed later, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you. Jay?
So I'm just looking online here to see if
Oh,
there's any
yeah,
other
sorry.
public comments.
Yeah.
Seeing none, and moving on, we don't have any rezone applications today. And we have 2 conditional use permits. The first is a public hearing in the town of Coudray, conditional use permit number 21-014, owner Paul Manka, part of government lots 2 and 3, lot 3 of CSM number 8450, section 8, township 39 north, range 8 west, parcel 004-839-085314, 1.4 total acres, zoned residential recreational 2. Permit is desired for a 32 by 54 pole shed accessory structure, 18 feet in height, on the other side of Jonans Road, which is a town road. This is subject to section 4.26 parent 2 and parent 3 of the Sawyer County zoning ordinance. As part of the staff report, again, this is for the construction of a single accessory structure on adjacent land that's divided by a public roadway and defined as one contiguous tract of land by deed or survey map, which also requires a conditional use permit. The applicant is requesting to build a 32 by 54 pole shed on the backside of Jones Road from where the primary dwelling is actually in process of being constructed right now. The entire area of Jones Road was recently divided into smaller tracts of land and is now being developed. The current primary dwelling and attached garage on the lakeside of Jones Road is currently being built. And also the conditional use permit for the larger pole shed on the same piece of property is what you have here in front of you. The proposed pole shed would not be able to fit on the lakeside portion due to the setback requirements. The proposed pole shed would be approximately 260 feet away from the lake and would meet all other setback requirements, including impervious surface requirements per the land area that is shown in the additional maps in this packet. As I mentioned before, this area is seeing a large amount of development. It would be anticipated that the Sawyer County Zoning Committee would probably see similar requests to this in the future in this area. Whether that is a good thing or not, the committee should be aware that this type of request is the first in the area and could be viewed as something that would have a setting of a developmental pattern for that area. That is what I have for my staff report. I will go over potential conditions when we get further through discussion actions. By motion of the town of Coudray, motion approved, James Bassett, chairman, Jeffrey Honing, supervisor, Phil Miles, supervisor. No additional comments. Charlie Warner, town clerk. There were 6 opinion letters sent out to neighbors within 300 feet, and 0 of those opinion letters were returned. That is all.
Okay. All right. I need a motion to go into public hearing in the town of Coudray, CUP number 21-014.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Ms. Pettit and a second by Ms. Hessel to go into public hearing. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. We are now in public hearing. Are you Mr. Menka?
Yes, I am.
Okay, State your name and address for us. for the
Paul
record.
Manka, address is W1510 30th Avenue, Birchwood, Wisconsin, 54817. There is one thing here, this building's actually 32 by 56, and just want to clarify that.
Okay.
8 foot on center, not 9. I noticed that this morning.
Okay.
So like Jay was saying, we are starting a house project already, and then across the street, we'd like to put a pole shed up.
You didn't more you want to tell us?
No, setbacks are, that obviously, we did the 63 feet back on there, so the land has been cleared and ready to go, just waiting on approval. That's all we're doing.
Committee, you have any questions you want to ask the applicant? Mr. Schuman?
Yeah, I do. Mr. Manka, do you have to get a driveway application or something to get to your pole shed on the other side of the
No,
road? Then you,
Coeur d'Alene does not require a driveway permit. I checked with them on that already.
Okay. Mr. Betcher, Ms. Pettit, you have any questions?
No, sir.
No, I don't have any questions. Looks fine to me.
All right, is anybody out there that wants to speak in favor of this CUP? If not, is there anybody out there that wants to speak against the CUP? Okay, if not, need a motion to come out of public hearing on CUP number 21-014.
Make that motion.
Okay,
Second.
we have a motion by Ms. Pettit and a second by Mr. Paulson to come out of public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, motion carries. We are now out of public hearing. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. This is a discussion action for conditional use permit number 21-014, Town of Coeur d'Alene, owner Paul Menka. Legal description is previously read into record. Permit is desired for, and this would be amended, for a 32 by 56 pole shed. As stated in my staff report, other possible conditions as part of approval of this would be that no habitable area would be allowed in this structure, that is not used for a commercial use or operation, that the size of the proposed accessory structure would be amended to a 32 by 56. All lighting would be downward facing lighting and must follow all other town, county, state, and federal regulations, laws, and conditions.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, go ahead,
I
Mr.
have a
Paulson.
question for the zoning administrator. You stated before that we might be setting a precedent. If you could expand on that, and what's your opinion?
I purposely didn't want to say precedent, and I didn't. I said that it would be somewhat of a developmental pattern. Again, these lots were recently developed over the last few years. This was a larger tract of land, and they split up into, I believe they're averaging about 120 feet in width of lots. As you can see on the map here, there's not a lot of room on the lake side. Maybe enough for, a modest sized house and maybe a smaller garage, but for a larger accessory structure to keep other boats, toys, other general storage, majority of those are going to be looking at wanting to build something on the opposite side of Jonans Road off of the lake shore. Again, whether this is a good thing or a bad thing, that's not up for really me to decide. The land areas, they have the land area. It's just that where that road goes through their lots kind of pinches them from developing on the lake shore. That could actually be a good thing to get some of these things away from the lake. But then again, I just wanted to mention that this is the first request that we're seeing in this area for someone wanting to build that accessory structure on the backside of the road. I would anticipate that over the next few years, we see a couple other of these requests.
Rebecca, can we get an input from you, please?
Sure. Because this is a conditional use request, as others would be coming forward. Excuse me. Each one has to be reviewed on its own merits. And because of 5969(5)(e), there are evidentiary requirements when issuing or denying a conditional use permit. And one of those is you have to have substantial evidence. So I would encourage you to look at each of these on its own merit. I think you can look to a development pattern. Thank you very much for your language choice. But I think, again, I would just encourage you that each time you receive an application, you look at it on its own merits and the evidence presented for that particular permit request.
Okay. Mr.
I have a
Schuman?
comment, Mr. Chairman. Yeah. Jay, what is the topography of that property there? Because I know as you go down Jonans Road, you get into some low land on that side of the road further down. where-
Yep, I do have an elevation map, I believe. Yep. So as you're correct, when you get further to the north and if this is a 40, you get about another quarter mile down the road. There is a wetland complex here kind of on this portion of the map. I don't know if you can see the cursor moving there. That is a wetland complex up there. So when you do get further north on Jonans Road, some of those, the next few lots that are north of this screen here, they're not going to have too much area on the backside of the road to do any other types of construction there. But anything within a quarter mile, basically south or north of this property for Mr. Menka, would be and have buildable area on the backside.
So, and did you say that one of the requirements is that he couldn't have a commercial business out of this?
That would be
Storage
correct. The zone district would not permit for it right now. It's zoned RR2. Now you could keep equipment. We've run into these issues before. Let's take the example of a tree cutting service. So if someone has a tree cutting service and they have their tree cutting trucks parked in a building, they're not necessarily operating their commercial business out of that structure. They're just parking their equipment there, then going to another site to perform that work. So we've never viewed that as you're doing a commercial business in that structure. No, your equipment's being stored there and you're doing your business at people's properties, cutting down their trees. For Mr. Menka, who I don't know if you guys know and whether it's pertinent into this information, he's the owner of Stone Lake Lumber.
Right.
And I've kind of had some conversations with him that you wouldn't be able to, store equipment or materials there for your other commercial business. And he indicated to me that, no, this is for general storage and storage for his property.
Good.
Boats, toys,
I
et
just
cetera.
want to make sure that Mr. Manka was aware of that. 'Cause I know. Thank you.
Okay. Any more questions, Mr. Betcher, Ms. Pettit?
I don't have a question, but is it okay if I make a motion to approve this CUP at this time?
I would
Yes, it
second
is.
that also.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Betcher and a second by Ms. Pettit to approve the CUP number 21-014. Roll call, Kathy, please.
Wait,
Bruce.
is there any further discussion?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Betcher.
I just had one question for Jay. He said the town of Coudray approved this. Was it a unanimous vote or was there any dissenting votes?
Well, approved 3-0 at the town of Coudray. No additional comments by the town clerk.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, roll
Okay,
call now,
I'll,
Kathy.
I'll start over. Bruce Paulson,
Yes.
Dawn Pettit. Dawn Pettit,
Don, you're muted.
Yes, I clicked the wrong button.
thank you. Jesse Betcher,
Yes.
Tweed Schuman,
Yes.
Stacy Hessel.
She's alternate. She's alternate.
That's right, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry, Ron Buckholz.
Yes.
Thank you. All in favor. Ugh. I know, yeah.
Moving on. Oh, I need findings of facts.
You need findings of facts.
Yes, please.
It would not be damaging to the rights of others or property values. It would not be detrimental to ecology, wildlife, wetlands, or shorelands. It would not destroy prime agricultural lands, and it would not create an objectionable view.
Thank you. Moving on, this is the public hearing, Town of Winter, conditional use permit number 21-016, owner Mark and Bonnie Schroeder, part of government lot 5, section 2, township 39 north, range 5 west, parcel 032-539-02-5510, 1.14 total acres, zoned residential recreational 1. Permit is desired for a 30 by 40 accessory structure, height of 17 feet on the other side of a town road, Fender Road, subject to section 4.26, parent 2 and parent 3 of the Sawyer County zoning ordinance. Again, per the staff report, again, this is the construction of a single accessory structure on an adjacent parcel of land that's divided by a public roadway and defined as one contiguous tract of land by deed or survey map, which also requires a conditional use permit. This is for a 30 by 40 accessory structure on the backside of Fender Road, across a town road from where the current primary dwelling is located. There is a current primary dwelling and detached garage located on the Barber Lake side of Fender Road. The proposed accessory structure would not be able to fit on that lakeside portion due to setbacks of the road and sewer system, and would increase the impervious surfaces on the lakeside. The proposed accessory structure would be approximately 380 feet from the lake and would meet all other setback requirements, including impervious surface requirements per the land area. You may also look at the attached maps included in this packet. Pat Brown, Assistant Zoning Administrator for Sawyer County Zoning Department, was out on site on this property and did verify wetland setbacks for the proposed structure. As per some of the conditions included in my staff report, again, that no habitable area would be allowed in the structure, no commercial use or operation would be allowed in the structure, size of the proposed accessory structure not to exceed 30 by 40, all lighting to be downward facing lighting, and must follow all other town, county, state, and federal regulations, laws, and conditions. As motioned by the Town of Winter Town Board, motion approved, Ronald Fandry, Supervisor, John Sherlewski, Supervisor, Ronald Barnaby, Chairman. No additional comments, signed Lori Van Winkle, Town Clerk. There were 7 opinion letters sent out, 3 were returned, all 3 with no objections. I have no objections to this. Kimberly Weinhardt. We're hurt. I have no objections. We have no objections whatsoever to the building permit of this accessory structure, signed Mary Hazelquist. I have no objections to this, Keith Wilson. That is all.
Okay. Thank you, Jay. All right, I need a motion to go into public hearing in the Town of Winter CUP number 21-016.
I'll make that
I'll
motion.
make that motion.
Mr. Schuman made a motion. Ms. Pettit, you second?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. All in favor to go into public hearing, say aye.
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 All opposed, motion carried. We are now in public hearing. Mr. and Ms. Schroeder, is that you? Which one of you wants to speak at?
You can speak at me.
Okay, just give us your name and address, please, for the record.
Mark Schrader, N7039 Fender Road, Winter, Wisconsin, 54896.
Okay, is there anything you want to tell us, committee, other than what was said by Jay? or-
He pretty much covered it.
Okay, all right. Anybody have any questions for the applicant? Mr. Schuman?
Are
Yeah.
there wetlands in the area, sir? You
Yes,
said-
there's,
Oh, so you have that setback and you're aware of that?
yep, yep.
Thank you.
Everything's been mapped out by Pat, and, we're abiding by all that, and there's more than enough land for the building, and then you won't even see it from the town road,
Mr. Betcher, did you have a question?
Yeah, I do. It just, the language just says accessory structure. I'm just wondering if I could get clarification on what exactly the building is or what it's going to be used for. Is it a pole barn or a storage shed?
It's a pole barn used basically to store boats and, small implements.
Okay. Did you hear that,
Okay.
Mr. Betcher?
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Any more questions for the applicant?
I don't have a
Anybody else?
question, but
Go
I
ahead,
do
Ms.
have a
Pettit.
comment. This is in my district. It's right around the corner from my house. It is within the nature of the landscape right there. There are other homes that have that, and it would be absolutely not impertinent to anybody. They all need it. They need storage, extra storage, and there is, as Mr. Schroeder said, there is plenty enough land that no one will even see this.
Thank you. Okay. Is there anybody out there that would like to speak in favor of this CUP? Or is there anybody out there that'd like to speak against the CUP? If not, need a motion to come out of public hearing?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Pettit and a second by Mr. Paulson to come out of public hearing on CUP number 21-016. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, motion carries. We are now out of public hearing.
This is discussion action in the town of Winter, conditional use permit number 21-016, owner Mark and Bonnie Schroeder. Legal description is previously read into record. Again, per the staff report, that possible conditions for this potential approval would be that no habitable area is allowed in the structure, no commercial use or operation allowed, size of the proposed accessory structure, which would be as a pole shed, not to exceed 30 by 40, all lighting to be downward facing lighting, and then must also follow other town, county, state, federal regulations, laws, and conditions, and meet and have all compliant wetland setbacks.
I'll make the motion to approve that.
Okay. We have a motion by Ms. Pettit and a second by Mr. Paulson.
With the question, Ms. Pettit, is your motion including the conditions?
Yes, 1 through 5 of the possible conditions for approval.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Any more discussion? Mr. Betcher?
All right, no questions.
Okay. All right. Roll call?
Dawn Pettit,
Yes.
Jesse Betcher,
Yes.
Tweet Schuman,
Yes.
Ron Buckholz.
Yes.
Bruce Paulson.
Yes.
Thank you. All in favor.
Okay. Thank you,
Fine,
folks.
yep, findings of facts, please. Don, you're muted.
Okay. Findings of fact would be not damaging to the rights of others. It's not detrimental to the ecology, wildlife, or wetlands or shorelands. Number 3, it would not recreate any air quality, water supply, or pollution. 4, the topographical problems such as runoff drainage is fine. It would not create traffic or heavy highway access, would not destroy prime agricultural lands. It would be compatible with the surrounding areas for uses. It would not create an objectionable view.
Perfect, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. New business?
Yeah, I got a few things. One of them is a certified survey map. This is for Nystrom's Resort LLC certified survey map review that crosses the exterior boundary of a recorded plat. This does require zoning committee's acceptance, conditional acceptance, or rejection. Myself and the county surveyor have both looked this over. This was part of one of the conditions that we made for this applicant when they came in for a conditional use permit for a multi-dwelling development last year. The survey map has now been completed. Initial preliminary reviews by myself and the county surveyor find no issues with this, but again, because this is a survey map that crosses the exterior boundary of a plat, per chapter 236 Wisconsin state statutes does require zoning committee approval. So I would need a motion from this committee to approve the survey map, and at that point, it would require chairman's signature.
Okay. Mr. Schuman?
Jay, then are you requesting that we accept this?
That
Or
would
is
be my
there-
recommendation.
That's
yes.
your recommendation? Thank you.
Mr. Paulson, you had a question?
No, I didn't have a question. I was going to make a motion to approve.
Okay.
Matter of fact, I just did.
There you did. You did.
To accept it, I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Paulson and a second by Mr. Schuman to accept the survey map. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries to approve.
Thank you. And then I have one other item, since we're, I guess, on B of new business as far as any other business that may come in front of this committee. For next month, zoning committee meeting, we have kind of our preliminary layout. We have 4 rezones and we have 4 conditional use permits next month. Now, 2 of these rezones go hand in hand with 2 of the conditional use permits. I guess I'm asking this committee and potentially legal counsel as to how we want to format that. Generally, we go rezones first and then conditional use permits. But I think it's somewhat pertinent that if you're having a rezone that's accompanied with a cup, that you would hear them back to back. That way it's fresh in everyone's mind. All the same issues are out on the table. So is there a way that you will allow me to structure this, that we hear, the 2 rezones first that don't get tied together with a conditional use permit, then hear the 2 separate conditional use permits that aren't tied with the rezone, then go back to rezone cup?
That's fine. Yeah.
Is there a certain way I need to structure that, or do we have to make a motion at the beginning of the agenda to approve an agenda alteration that doesn't follow a rezone applications first, conditional use permit applications second?
Yeah,
Or is,
I think that's a good idea. My only question was, is that okay under the bylaws? Did you check?
the bylaws state that, that rezone applications are heard first, then conditional use permits. That's why I guess I'm
Also,
asking.
so there's a deviation from the bylaws.
Right, but it also has that out that unless otherwise approved to change the agenda, but why have it structured differently if we already know that we're gonna change it at the beginning of the meeting?
Right, I agree.
Yeah, I think it's up to the committee's discretion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
However you want to.
So I'll structure it that we hear the rezones that are accompanied with the cups back to back. So the agenda is gonna look a little weird next month, but we'll get it right.
Okay. Now, one other thing here, Ms. Zilmer, you wanted us to, what you said about in your public comment. Would you state that again, what you want, before we adjourn here?
Linda Zilmer again. I would like clarification going forward with the new zoning ordinance amendment adoption for campgrounds, how that will be enforced, because my interpretation of what was passed would not allow the sheds to 240 square foot decks on existing campgrounds that don't meet the acreage and density requirement. So for instance, I think it was the previous month, there was an Edgewater campground that was allowed in an expansion. And if their existing campground is that high density, low acreage, then I don't think they would be allowed the sheds in the 240 square feet, because you would not allow an expansion of a nonconformity.
Throw that out there.
Do you want me to take that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Rebecca and I talked about this as well.
Yep, we did.
Okay.
Let me just grab my notes here. No, I think Zilmer raises a good question. And, and talking with Jay about this and looking at the language of the ordinance and so forth. The law is, it's clear in the distinction that you have non-conforming uses and non-conforming structures. What is not clear in the case law is how to differentiate if you have a non-conformity on one aspect of the parcel, and then does that render a non-conformity label to the whole parcel. So in this instance, based on the change of the ordinance that was passed last night, if it renders an aspect of the property non-conforming, does that then overlay onto that title, overlay onto the whole parcel? And the language of section 2 of the new 6.61, it says that non-conforming campsites are grandfathered for the placement of camping equipment. So again, the question is, does that nonconformity, excuse me, on, excuse me, on that label of nonconformity, does it apply to the whole parcel? And I think that, based on what the thorough discussion at this committee, and then at the board meeting on last night, because of the ambiguity, usually the first step in doing legal analysis is you look to the actual language in front of you. If there's any sort of ambiguity, then you can also look to what the legislative intent is. Now, based on my review of what was previously discussed, again, I think we can certainly look to whatever the committee's intent was. So in this instance, if the committee and the board's intent was to limit the application of that non-conforming status to just the structures, i.e., if you have a non-conformity with respect to the setback requirements, I think it's an appropriate way to enforce. And again, that is based not only on the language, the discussion, the ambiguity factor, but then also on what the case law allows you to do and the discretion that you're given. Does that answer?
And to kind of summarize, and correct me if I'm wrong, so we're looking at it from an aspect of kind of where an individual campsite is located, that if a campsite is non-conforming, that it doesn't meet the required ordinary high water mark setback, or the campsite doesn't meet the required setback distance to a property line, then they are not eligible for a larger deck size. But if the campground as a whole is over their density requirements, they would potentially still be able to have a larger deck as long as that deck wasn't, again, a non-conforming campsite to a setback. So that was somewhat of the intent. And I think there is some case law that supports that.
Did that help you, Ms. Zillmer?
No, it doesn't help me.
Hang on, sorry.
I understand the explanation, but I don't think I agree with it because some of the comment I heard last night at county board is, I don't think anybody in Stark County is anti-campground, but they have become so kind of packed and intrusive, and that it makes it difficult for balancing. So my understanding of the changes, because I think the request was to look at the camping ordinance holistically. A campsite owner a campground owner came in and requested larger deck size. And I think the zoning committee made the right call to look at this holistically, not just look at deck sizes. So I understood those months of discussion to be, okay, we're gonna amend our ordinance and we're gonna address the acreage requirement, we're gonna address the density requirement, and therefore now new campgrounds going forward will not be these compact, dense operations. And by having larger sites or whatever, then you can allow for a shed and you can allow for 240 square feet. I don't know if you guys went, I'm down from Edgewater. You drive around anywhere, everything is packed right together. And to allow, especially on Lakeshore where you have more, it is impervious surface. Everything that's built, whether it's on the ground or a deck above, is creating more groundwater coming into our lake. So it's a water quality issue. So I guess, can this committee discuss this at a future date and maybe get clarification on that case law? Because I don't think we want to allow some of these really dense campgrounds to add additional structures. And also the definition of camping equipment, because camping equipment to me is the camper, but it's not a deck or a shed. Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Paulson.
Yep, I guess maybe to a clarification. So if we've got a campground campsite that is dense, has the same density as the old ordinance, and they want to put a auxiliary building on that site, can they?
looking at the case law, as long as that shed meets the compliant setbacks and that campsite met the compliant setbacks, then yes.
The setback current recent ordinance or setback prior ordinances?
Current.
Okay, so that would constrain increasing the density then. I'm not talking campsite density, but just density in, let me call it another word, structures on that campsite.
Can you try to explain that one more time?
Well, I guess there's density, total campsite density,
Correct.
and then there's what I consider what's on a campsite, all of the camper, the decks, and any other buildings.
Mhm.
And so are we saying that they can put an auxiliary building on if they meet the other setback requirements?
Yes. If they meet the other setback requirements,
Right.
as now into new ordinance
Right.
form.
What's the probability of that?
I'm just, trying to look at some of the campgrounds that are out there. I do think you're gonna have some people wanting to apply for the larger decks and sheds. But you look at some of the areas around like Nelson Lake, some of those campers and campsites. A lot of those are gonna be non-conforming even to the existing ordinance where they're too close to the water, too close to property lines. They would not be eligible for sheds or decks. And I think we're getting, as far as the campgrounds moving forward, I think we're going to get further and further away from that just because of how we've kind of wanted to potentially structure campgrounds moving forward in Sawyer County. I think you're going to see larger tracts of land being developed where that they would have plenty of room to add those
Right.
kind of
Well, I
structures.
think that was the intent of the
Yes.
ordinance. So I'm going to beat the horse to death again.
Mhm.
So we've got a campsite with a non-conforming deck.
Mhm.
The deck is larger than what the deck requirements were when the deck was built. And can a person put a auxiliary structure, a small shed on that property?
I would say no, because that
Okay.
campsite is non-conforming now.
Okay. Yes, go ahead. Ms.
I think Ms. Zillmer also raises a good question with respect to the definition of camping equipment. Jay and I looked through through the ordinances and trying to develop a definition of that. It's not explicitly defined. We have a definition of, what was it, major equipment.
Major recreational vehicle.
Yeah, so that actually makes it more difficult because we have one definition pertaining to one thing. So we can't necessarily lump camping equipment into that. I did a very brief search on whether I could find some more particular legal guidance on camping equipment, and there isn't any specific case law. So I think then it becomes a question for this committee as to whether an accessory structure is indeed camping equipment. So you could look to, I guess, what is that structure used for? If it's for housing a lawnmower, things of that nature, does that fall within your reasonable interpretation of camping equipment? My legal opinion would be no. I don't think that is what the intent of camping equipment is.
No, and
Again,
there's always,
It's difficult.
This
'cause
is
it's
always
case
an
by case.
evolving ordinance, and over the last 2 years that I've been the zoning administrator, we've tried to make changes and doing amendments to try to get this cleaned up, and it's going to be a process over the next couple decades to get this all ironed out and hammered out and having a perfect smooth working ordinance. So we'll get there at some point. Adding additional definitions in there and getting everything more secured.
Well, Jay, I want to compliment you and your staff on a good job you're doing in that zoning office.
Thank you,
Appreciate
sir.
it. Okay, any more questions? Okay, if not, we're adjourned. Thank you, Mr. Betcher, Ms. Pettit.
Thank you, Chairman. Have a good afternoon and good weekend, everybody.
You too.
Thanks.
Thank you.